I'm Chance.
And I'm Sarah Kathryn.
And this is Conservation Connection,
presented by Last Chance Endeavors.
We are a husband and wife team running a wildlife education nonprofit. It's focused on connecting students to their environment.
Each week, here on Conservation Connection, we do just that, introducing you to the groundbreaking science and conservation work that's happening every day across the globe.
We talk to professionals in the world of conservation science and wildlife management, and we ask them about their career,
their current projects,
their wild and crazy stories from the field,
and everything in between.
This episode is a collaboration with EarthX here in Dallas, Texas.
EarthX is the largest Earth Day celebration in the world, and it brings in speakers from every corner of the environmental arena.
Listen in to hear the stories of today's environmental titans, covering everything from environmental law, ocean health, renewable energy, clean transportation, and so much more.
Let's get to the show.
Welcome to an EarthX episode of Conservation Connection. We're very excited today because we're sitting down across the table from Kirk Johnson. He is the Sant Director of the National Museum of Natural History at the Smithsonian Institute.
Well, that's a mouthful. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
We're really excited to have you here. You have a new exhibit coming to the National Museum of Natural History very soon. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, 41 days from today on June 8th.
Counting down.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. We've been working on this exhibit for over 7 years.
Wow.
It's a history of life on Earth. It starts at the beginning of our planet. It goes through the evolution of life on Earth, comes up to the age of humans, and continues into the future. So it's unlike any other fossil exhibit you've ever seen. It's got fossils, but it also has the future in it. And the reason we're doing that is we know that people love fossil exhibits. They love dinosaurs. But often they don't connect the past, the present, or the future. And our planet's an amazing place, and what we know about its past is so relevant to the future.
Absolutely. It's all about context, and that's definitely something that we're seeing more and more in the world of environmental education and conservation, is that you can't pick any single thing and talk about it without considering the context in which that thing exists. So being able to show the whole spectrum of life on Earth from beginning to now to what it may look like in the future, that's absolutely fantastic.
How much of a hand did you have in creating this exhibit, and how many people did it take to create this exhibit? Over, you said 7 years?
Yeah, no, it's a immensely expensive, time-consuming process. It's about a $63 million project.
Wow.
And we've just put together a list of people who worked hard on the project. The people that directly worked on it number more than 400 people. And it included the remounting of all the skeletons of all the dinosaurs that we've had at the museum. Some of these skeletons have been on display since 1923. We took them down and cleaned them up. And there's just a huge amount of science that's happened in the last century. And what we've tried to do is weave that all into this exhibit. So it's not just a dinosaur haul. It's actually the tale of our planet at a really critical time in our planet's history, the time when humans are becoming major forces in the planet.
We are a force of nature in and of our own selves. Absolutely. So can you tell me a little bit about what the experience of walking through this exhibit is going to be like?
Yeah, so this is the main exhibit hall in the National Museum. It's the most visited natural history museum in the world. We get about 5 or 6 million visitors a year. Most of them are tourists, so they're the different people every year to year, which means that over a decade, something like 50 million people are going to walk into this exhibit. So it's a major tool for informal science education. And when they walk into the main rotunda, which has these 85-foot-high ceilings, there's a giant elephant from Angola, and if you turn right, you walk into the story of our planet. And if you walk into this space, you'll see an incredible diversity of things: animals, plants, invertebrates, videos, interactives. It's sort of a playground of the past and the future. And we've built it to take a huge traffic, because we get, on a given day in Washington, D.C. in the springtime, we might see 25,000 people in our building.
Wow.
Which is a remarkable thing. I mean, that's, getting close to half an annual attendance for lots of museums. It'll be in a single day in Washington, D.C.
That's incredible. And I love that it sounds like you're really integrating technology into this. So often you think of museums as these kind of dusty places where there's old books, and being able to have exhibits that are really on the cutting edge of technology and innovation is a really powerful thing.
Well, museums are definitely not dusty. They are amazing places. I mean, museums do three things. They actually preserve what we know about the planet. And if you think about what museums have done since the few hundred years have been around, those are the places where we actually preserve the objects we've collected as humans to understand planet Earth. So behind the scenes at museums, there are literally tens of millions of specimens of all sorts of things. That's number one. The number two, we have scientists that are doing the scientific research on those objects. And number three is what we provide to the public. So when you look at a museum, it's actually three things. It's not one thing. And it is not dusty, and it is definitely not boring. And this exhibit is an amazing one because it tells the whole story. And we've got a couple of really spectacular things, like an 80-foot-long Diplodocus skeleton from Utah, the original skeleton, or the nation's T-Rex, a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex from Montana that is stepping on a Triceratops, crushed into the ground, and all sorts of other things from any time period you can imagine. And the technology is there when we need it. I prefer to think of museums as the last bastion of the real thing. Because in a world that's increasingly dependent on screens and technology, it's rare to see a real thing, like a real 80-foot-long dinosaur from Utah.
Like that bone was in a real living animal at one point.
Exactly. 153 million years ago.
And now it's sitting right in front of you, and you can experience it directly.
And we have, lots of things to touch, because a lot of kids, they see the world by grabbing onto it. And they have to, you'll turn kids loose in a room and they'll rush over and just hug something. So they can do that too.
Yeah, which is great because so many places, you see signs that just say, don't touch, don't cross this line.
Exactly. No, it's a touch thing for sure. And the technology helps us take on really difficult topics like how do you explain that every living thing on planet Earth is related to every other living thing? It's the tree of life. But if you ask the question, what's the nearest living animal to a bear? Most people can't answer that question. Can you?
Closest living animal to a bear. So we're talking about carnivora, right?
Yep.
We're talking about the ursine group.
Yep.
No, I'm not going to embarrass myself. Tell me.
Excellent. Sea lion.
Oh, okay.
Pinnipeds, right? So, of course, dogs are close, but the branch between pinnipeds and bears is closer to the branch between dogs and bears. So the actual structure of the tree of life is complicated. It's only recently revealed itself as we look at the skeletons of animals, but also the genetic code, which we're now tapping into and building the real tree of life. And the fact that everything is related is news to a lot of people. It's Darwin's great insight. But if you think about conservation, it's really important to know what the tree of life actually is. And so far, we've named about 2 million species on planet Earth. There's many more than that. I mean, we know there must be at least 10 million because of the diversity of marine invertebrates and rainforest insects alone was going to pump that number way up. And there's this whole world of microbes you don't know much about. And so part of the exhibit is helping people understand that life on Earth is more than the fuzzy creatures that we always like to conserve. There are literally millions of species you've never heard of that live on planet Earth that deserve this place as much as a orca or a polar bear or a panda.
And to put that number in perspective, if you think about all of the mammals, all of the fuzzy things that are warm-blooded, they produce milk, all of the mammals on this planet, that's less than 6,000 species, give or take.
Yeah, and most of them are bats and rats.
Right. And yeah, because there's a lot of rodents and there's a lot of bats, a lot of species. And so to think that when you think of an animal, you're thinking dog, cat, right? Bear. That is a tiny fraction of the almost 2 million scientifically described species. So to have a place where you're talking about all species, all life on Earth, and how it is connected and related to one another, what a powerful educational tool.
And then, it's a tip of the iceberg. In my hall, our museum is 1.3 million square feet, 300,000 feet of public space. There's 1 million square feet behind the scenes where we keep the collections. And down the hall from my office is the National Squirrel Collection, where we have 32,000 squirrels.
That's a lot of squirrels.
And there are 287 squirrel species in the world. Who knew, right? There are giant rainforest squirrels in Vietnam. There's little tufted pygmy squirrels. So this whole story of conservation is really based on what do we stand to lose on planet Earth? And the first thing you have to know is what do we have on planet Earth? And our scientists at the museum, on average, on a given year, describe over 300 new species a year.
Every year.
Every year. So in the time I've been director for the last 6 years, we've described more than 2,000 new species of organisms on planet Earth. So we're still describing new stuff. At the same time, we're also concerned about preserving the things that we know all around the planet.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. And that's probably one of the coolest things that I've heard you mention during this episode. I'm curious to ask, in your time as director, what has been, either in your time developing this new exhibit or in your whole time as director, what has been the coolest thing that you've seen happen at the Smithsonian?
That's a really hard question because in a given week, amazing things happen. We not only have collections of the natural world, we also have collections of human remains and human ethnography. And we have tremendous partnerships with Native American communities across North America and South America. And we have partners from around the world who come and study our materials. There are something on the order of 8,000 visiting scientists a year that come to see the collection at the National Museum of Natural History. So on a given day, you might meet your hero. I mean, 2 weeks ago, David Attenborough walked into my office. And, that doesn't happen in most places. But
No.
And he's a fossil freak. He loves fossils, which is great.
Wow.
He was so delighted. I got to take him through the fossil exhibit and show David Attenborough things. And I introduced him to an animal he'd never heard of, which
Wow.
the people I was with were totally stunned to learn this. But it's an extinct fossil whale from Peru called Odobenus cetops. And if you know your names, Odobenus is the name of the walrus, the Pacific walrus. Right. And the Odobenus cetops is the extinct walrus whale. It's a relative of the narwhal, and it has 2 tusks that come out of its skull and point backwards like walrus tusks. One tusk is long, about as long as a broom handle, and one is short, about a foot long. And it was collected in Peru. It's about 15 million years old. It's on display in the new exhibit. You've probably never heard of it. Nope. David Attenborough had never heard of it. I was so psyched to stump David Attenborough.
That is fantastic.
That's really cool. And for our audience who can't see your face, you were just like grinning from ear to ear, which is awesome.
Correct.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. I cannot wait to go check out this new exhibit. I hope everybody listening is going to go check out this new exhibit because I'm certain that it's going to be incredible.
So it's Deep Time, and it opens on June 8th.
June 8th.
Can't wait. Thanks for being on the show today.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conservation Connection.
If you enjoyed our podcast, go ahead and subscribe to make sure you catch every episode that we post.
We would love to hear from you. So, if you want to reach out, go to our website, lastchanceendeavors.com/contact, and shoot us an email.
We love questions from our listeners, so if you heard something that you want to know more about, be sure to let us know.
We'll post bonus content that addresses your questions and gives you a little more information.
A big thanks to EarthX for hosting us, and a big thanks to you for listening. Don't forget to tune in next week.